I thought maybe there's actually a business I can build, not just my little hobby.
Hi, everyone. It's Kara Goldin from The Kara Goldin Show, and I'm so excited to have my next guest here. We have Kaylin Marcotte here from JIGGY, which is one of my favorite new brands that is out in the market. I'm so excited. As a matter of fact, I have my JIGGY puzzle here that I've been holding on to and told everybody you cannot build this puzzle yet until I talked to Kaylin, because I wanted the beautiful glass jar that it comes in. And I mean, everything about it. We have, the nice JIGGY piece here that really is amazing, especially when you finish, because you have the sealant that you can put on it so that you can actually make this really pretty picture. I could be on your commercial, right, Kaylin?
You are. I'm loving the pitch.
I know. I got the whole pitch down. So anyway, very, very fun. And I was mentioning to Kaylin that I also sent it to my college daughters, who are so excited to start building it on their floor in their dorm rooms. And I think they already started. Yeah, so fun. So anyway, very, very nice to have you here, Kaylin, and just a little bit about JIGGY. So we'll get into it and obviously have Kaylin tell us a little bit more about it, but she's the founder and CEO, and it's a jigsaw puzzle brand on a mission to modernize and elevate the humble, the somewhat boring puzzle market. And she's also doing an incredible job of supporting artists out there in the world, female artists out there in the world. And her story has been featured in many top publications, including Vogue and Elle, the Today Show, the New York Times. So you may have read about her as well. And prior to launching JIGGY, Kaylin founded Village Strategies, which was a marketing consulting group, but she also worked at another super cool brand called theSkimm. We're going to get to talk about that. I love theSkimm too, another female-founded brand. She lives in Brooklyn, and she's from California. Hopefully we'll get her back one day to California. She loves spending her free time doing what else but building out jigsaw puzzles, of course. And we're just really, really excited to have her here. We're also, so just in case you thought about putting this episode on hold for just a minute, we're going to get to talk to Kaylin about being on that little show Shark Tank too. So you have to hear all about that as well. But Kaylin, I'm so excited to have you here.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kara. What an intro, but I'm thrilled to be here today.
Super excited. So tell us a little bit about little Kaylin. Like, how did you were you always this puzzle going kid that was, constantly looking for that puzzle, doing a puzzle? Or tell me a little bit more about you as a kid.
Yeah, I certainly, did puzzles, and we were a big board game family. So a lot of game nights, and my dad had been a physics major in college, and my brother was very science oriented as well. So we were, building our own Rube Goldberg machines and a Van de Graaff generator, and making our hair stand up on its end. So always just kind of tinkering, building. But no, I was not kind of a puzzle fanatic until I rediscovered them in adulthood.
That's awesome. And you started out in the legal world. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I was pre-law in undergrad. I majored in political science. I was on the undergrad law review board and thought I was going to take that path. And I hadn't yet taken the LSAT when I graduated college. And so I started in management consulting. I thought it, had parallels to a legal career of being client facing and, analytical, and that it would kind of be a transferable experience. So I started in management consulting while I kind of bought some time to take the LSAT and apply to law schools. And then I met Carly and Danielle, who were the co-founders of theSkimm, and just total hard right, kind of derailed, but ultimately quite the blessing.
That's wild. So you were living in New York at the time?
Yeah. So I grew up in Pasadena in Southern California, and then I came out to New York for undergrad. So I went to Barnard and had an amazing experience there, and then stayed in New York since then.
That's wild. So you were at IBM, and is that where you were doing the management consulting? What do you think?
Yeah,
I mean, like, you went there right after college. What do you think about management consulting in general as like a first job? Like, what did you learn?
Yeah, I think honestly, as a first entry, which so much of your first job, I think, is just learning how to be an adult, employee in the workforce, and like write emails and, interact with colleagues and wake up on time and all that. So I think also what management consulting does do is just create such a foundation of just how to think, how to be analytical. They really kind of teach you how to have a framework approach, certainly kind of confidence building to speak in front of clients. So I think some of those just basic foundations are applicable to pretty much anything you do next. So I only lasted a couple years in the end, but as a first job, I think it's a great place to start.
That's awesome. So transitioning from there into a startup, how big was theSkimm at the point when
So I met the
joined?
co-founders. Yeah, it was quite the pendulum swing from IBM to essentially the two co-founders, no office, first employee. So I met them about a year after they had launched the newsletter, the email newsletter, the Daily Skimm. And they did a seed round of funding. And so we're just starting to, hire, get an office, build out the team. And we had coffee at a coffee shop in the West Village and just talked about their vision. And I came at it from the angle of being a reader. I had been subscribed very early and had, been reading it every morning on my commute. And so really came at it from, here's what I love about it. Here's the opportunity I see. And so we had a coffee, and I remember walking away from it and it's just like, I have to be a part of this in some way, shape, or form. I was just so connected to their mission and vision. And so ended up joining as their first employee.
That's amazing. And so what were you doing as their first employee?
It was one of those, like, there's some idea of the job description, but really kind of blends into any and everything. But what we had talked about in those early conversations was really the kind of grassroots approach to growth and marketing, and the idea of a brand ambassador program, which ended up becoming Skimm Ambassadors, and was kind of the tentpole marketing and community initiative we launched. And so that was essentially audience development and kind of community building around the content was my job on paper. And then just by virtue of being there first, office mom and setting up, kind of culture, team, social media, I was really interested in at the time. This was like kind of 2013, 2014. So took over our Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, heavy on the kind of content and grassroots marketing, and then some fun kind of team and onboarding stuff.
I love it. Did you know at that point that you might want to be an entrepreneur when you joined them? Or were you actually just excited about going and working for a startup?
Definitely was just excited to see something that early on, and really in those kind of meaty creative days, from the seed to I stayed 4 years until after the Series B. So just like hyper growth, super creative, trying everything for the first time, and that pace of just, you have an idea, you try it, did it work? should you innovate, try it again, and just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks. So I was pretty immediately kind of addicted to just that environment and pace and the level of ownership and creativity. And then kind of slowly started thinking about, what would it look like if I did my own thing, and becoming more and more comfortable. I think from the outside, sometimes it's very easy to think like, oh, they must know what they're doing. They must have, XYZ skill set that I don't, or this experience that set them up for success. And I think being on the inside and seeing like, we're just winging it,
Yeah. And trying lots of things, and
right. And that almost like demystified what it's like to start something. And I think, over the 4 years I was there, definitely gave me more and more confidence that I could do it too.
It's funny. I'm totally dating myself here, but it's way back when I was first starting my career, I had an opportunity and was recruited out of Time Magazine to go to CNN. And this is when 24-hour news was not, worldwide. It was probably in like 40% of households. And so Ted Turner was running around the office, and, truthfully, some days we were like, oh yeah, he really gets it. And other days we're like, I don't know, maybe we should go work for ABC. I mean, we were all like, I don't know, right? I mean, it was those moments, the visionary entrepreneur. But it was really when I finally decided to go start my own company. And the reason I asked you that question, I never thought I was going to go start my own company when I was back at CNN. I just wanted to go and work for a product, work for a company that I was really excited about. But it really did demystify it. And ultimately, we ended up getting on the map when Ted and CNN learned or actually heard that a leader of a country was learning that their country was being bombed by another country on CNN. And that's what put CNN on the map. And it was, and being there and watching it and watching the audience go from not believing or not really always believing to believing was really, really powerful. And I say this about, if you ever have an opportunity to go and work for entrepreneurs, it doesn't even matter if it doesn't totally work out the way that you thought. The stuff that you'll learn, the demystification of it all, is just, it's really hard to even articulate or read in a textbook. It's just getting in it and seeing it, I think, is just such amazing experience.
I totally agree. I highly encourage. I was just talking to a friend about that and how there's kind of this survivor bias after, of course they knew that was going to be successful. And like, I can tell you, definitely not, days of like, is this going to work? Is it? And a lot of the ideas didn't work. And so I think that once you've been a part of it and seen that, it certainly, the demystification is a very valuable experience.
Yeah. I always say too that I would have made a lot more money quicker if I would have run the videotape on all of the crazy, nights that would have been going on, the reality show that I'm sure you have many of those moments too, where you're like, you can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. So you left theSkimm and then you decided to launch this product. And for those of you who haven't heard about JIGGY before or didn't catch the episode of Shark Tank, you should definitely watch it, where Kaylin talks a little bit more about it. But for everybody, tell us, how did you get this idea?
It actually started back in the early Skimm days, when, everything that I just said about the experience and the creativity and the pace, which was incredible and such an enriching environment, was also very stressful and all consuming. And, it was 2014 and we were starting to talk about like burnout and, like tech fatigue and kind of what that would look like in terms of self-care, meditation, headspace, was all the rage. And so I just started thinking about what, unplugging would look like for me and getting away from screen time and all of that, and tried meditating, and nothing just really quieted my mind. And I had just in a stack of board games, had a puzzle and did it somewhat randomly, and it just clicked immediately. It totally just consumed, gave me kind of productive tunnel vision. And as a chronic multitasker, I just forgot all pings, notifications, and it really kind of just quieted and centered me. And so I started doing them pretty much every night, before bed, robe, tea, do like half hour of puzzling, and really kind of felt the effects myself. And so just started seeing if that was a thing, and found studies connecting them to improve memory and sleep and decreased dementia. And, there was a study that, they'd use it with PTSD patients and people struggling with grief, and how it is just kind of this escapism, and helps pass the time and just kind of center you. So totally adopted it as my kind of nightly ritual. And I was going through about 1,000-piece puzzle every week. So constantly online at a toy store nearby, looking for more puzzles. And all the ones I could find were just like you said, grandma's puzzles, super kind of, stock photography, cheesy landscape photos. And, you spend 8 to 12 hours immersed in this image, studying every piece of it, literally. And so the seedling of the idea was just, couldn't this be a better experience if the design I'm putting together were compelling and something that, I'd want to be living inside of for all these hours. And so that just kind of planted. I started a folder on my phone and of iPhotos of any time I was at a gallery or even Instagram and saw a design that I thought would be fun to puzzle. I just put it in this folder. But this was like year one at theSkimm, and I ended up staying 4 years. So, it was just slowly this idea would keep coming back and take a little bit more shape. And growing up in LA, my mom spent her entire career in arts, nonprofits, and education. And I was always surrounded by the art community. And so started thinking of, what interesting kind of platform this product is. Essentially just a vehicle for this design that you're piecing together. So could I kind of merge the two and actually help emerging artists monetize their work by creating this product that there was demand for? So it slowly started taking more and more shape. And then once I was ready to leave theSkimm after those 4 years, and in that time I also had seen some of these fads that gave me more confidence that there was an appetite for this product. So like adult coloring books and kind of just, Pinterest DIY crafty type products. And so I thought maybe there's actually a business I can build, not just my little hobby. I left and started building JIGGY.
I love it. So you said you were kind of incubating this idea while you were sitting at theSkimm and in your spare time. So when you finally launched in November of 2019, how long do you think it took you from the time you actually wrote the business plan to actually, getting it off the ground?
Yeah, it was once I fully dove in, it was pretty quick. It was about 8 to 9 months to make the product, which for me was the steepest learning curve because, coming from theSkimm, a lot of the branding, marketing, kind of messaging came very naturally, but how do you make a thing and get it from point A to point B? And so the whole world of, manufacturing and finding a factory and freight, logistics, all that was all new to me. So that ended up taking the longest amount of time. And then, prototyped it, found the right partners on the manufacturing side, and ultimately, launched November 2019 and went right into holiday, and then 4 months later, obviously never could have known what was coming, but it was threw us into this whirlwind.
It's crazy. I remember when you launched, because we're on a group called The List together, and I remember you saying that we were heading into the holiday season, and you highlighting that you had just launched this company, and I took a look at it, and it was just so awesome. I was so proud of you. And so, what do you think was like the key learning curve? And you touched on this, but you were not doing physical products at theSkimm, right? And you were. It was very similar to me coming into a physical product. I was at America Online in tech, and it was bits and bytes my entire career. And then all of a sudden, something I share with entrepreneurs, it's like a whole new level. I mean, even people that have been entrepreneurs in the non-physical world, it really is different. And there's things that you have to worry about that you just never even thought about.
Never would have thought. Yeah.
Timelines and things. So what was kind of the biggest shocker or aha moment in sort of the physical world that you just hadn't really thought about?
Oh, there were so many. I mean, definitely just finding the right factory. I guess I just assumed like there must be directory or lists of them, of course there are people out there who make things. I want to make a thing. Like, how hard could it be to find them? And really finding the right partner. All of our packaging and each component of our puzzle kit is custom. And so people who, were working with those materials and also willing to do a different version and create them custom for us. And then also, minimum order quantities. Okay, we find the right factory and they're like, great, you have to order 300,000 of them. Like, I can't do that. I'm like, so, just every step of the way, like, all right, so what can we work out? How do we, kind of just creative problem solving at every step and trying to get them to a yes. And certainly as a pre-launch, when they don't even know if it's really worth the time to like staff the factory for you, you're unproven as a brand. So that was definitely hit a lot of road bumps there. And then, freight, this year with the Suez Canal, you just never know. And I remember the first time our product was stuck on the boat, and, our freight forwarder was like, it's here, it's at the port. They're just not docking it. And I'm like, what do we got to do? Like, I'll go down to the port. Do we got to like grease someone? Like, tell me what to do. And he's like, that's it. Like, you wait. And I was like, how can this not be in my control? And I think that's, at theSkimm, okay, tight deadline. You pull an all-nighter. You just like, there's a lot more within your control when it's digital and, when it's something that you kind of have the power to execute on. I've found that the accepting what I can't control, and that the timelines, it's what they say, like renovating a house, it's always going to be, take longer and cost more. And so I think just, that kind of just rules of thumb and learning, the right questions to ask, the right timelines to put into place has certainly been a steep learning curve.
So you get through a great holiday season, you're off to the races, everything's going great. Suddenly, COVID hits. Woohoo! Right? I mean, It's like insane. And so what did you do at this moment? I mean, how did you think about your business? How did you survive? How did you grow? All of those questions.
Yeah, I'll tell you, those first few months, I mean, one, just being a New Yorker, at this point I'd been here, 12 years, pretty much all of my adult life. So just what the city was going through those first few months was just so difficult to witness. And then at the same time, there was kind of this very conflicted, just emotional experience of actually having our business be booming when, every story was about people losing their jobs and being out of work and businesses having to close, and we couldn't keep up with demand. And so on the one hand, it brought a ton of attention to our product and this category. Everyone was looking for at-home activity. On the other hand, it brought a lot of supply chain issues, global freight issues, and, warehouses where they were just telling us, we don't know who's going to show up today, so we can't promise anything in terms of timeline. So just a lot of difficulty to restock quickly enough. So on the one hand, I was like, oh my God, this is a window of opportunity. Like, we have to meet the moment and rise to the occasion. On the other is just a constantly moving target of trying to keep up quickly enough. And so essentially what we did is, we sold out of inventory very quickly, and then we created gift cards first. So they were actually puzzle gift cards. So it was a 24-piece puzzle about postcard size. And when you put it together, it unlocks your redemption code. So we launched those to kind of tide us over. And then we ended up doing this campaign, which became a real kind of moment for us. And I think it really speaks to the kind of need for innovation. That saying I love, necessity is the mother of invention, and so essentially we were sold out. We were going to be sold out. We rushed into production, but we couldn't restock quickly enough. And so what I was able to get were blank white puzzles. And so nothing was printed on them, but the pieces were cut. They were just white. And we had this community of artists who, we're talking to them at the beginning of COVID, and they're saying, galleries are closed, exhibits are closed, canceled. Like, we have nothing no outlets right now for our work and to support ourselves. So we got these blank white puzzles, we distributed them to our artist community, and they hand drew and hand painted directly onto these blank whites, creating these one-of-a-kind pieces of art. And we hosted essentially an auction, an art auction for these originals, and raised money, split it between the artists and New York City COVID fundraising efforts. And it ended up, being a really special campaign. We had some celebrities paint one and help kind of get the word out. So yeah, that was our kind of innovation for the times. And then we ended up being able to restock and kind of launch back in to keep up with the demand. But it's been a crazy year.
Crazy time. So supply chain, obviously you talked about you're making most of the stuff outside of the country. Do you think you'll try and figure out options on this side of the world? I mean, it seems to be the story for everybody around supply chain who is doing stuff outside of their own country, not just the US, but I feel like everywhere, if the majority of your business is in one country and you don't have the ability to actually get what you need to sell quickly, it's sort of like a huge lesson learned that I think everybody has been really working on. Do you believe that's also one that you feel is a challenge for you that you needed to take on?
Yeah, we actually ended up doing it. So, because of it's kind of a silver lining of these constraints, that we ended up finding a domestic partner. And so that's opened up a ton of new opportunity in that we can essentially print on demand. So be much more nimble with turnaround time, minimum orders. So now not only can we restock quickly, but we also are able to kind of take on custom projects. So brands, companies who want to do, their logo or some kind of branded art for employee gifting or, VIP client gifting, or to actually bundle it with a product and have it be kind of an upsell. So yeah, certainly one silver lining of having to figure something out domestically has been essentially a whole new kind of product line and revenue stream for the business. Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. We should definitely talk about that for sure.
Yes.
For Hint, I love it. So you self-funded the company, correct? Initially. And so it was, so how did you do that? What was kind of the strategy behind being able to do that?
Yeah, again, I had the idea and been thinking on it for years. And so by the time I actually dove in to doing it, had just been saving up and was comfortable with just going at it myself, at least in the beginning. And I think it, kind of similar to the originals campaign we ended up doing, I think it forced a lot of creativity of having, limited the resource constraint, forced a lot of creativity. And so ended up just bootstrapping and getting creative with, terms and pre-sales and how to structure it with the factory and all of that. But ultimately was able to launch with just, the savings over the past couple of years. And then from there, just, cash flow and continue to reinvest and grow it. Yeah.
Have you had more people since you were on Shark Tank reaching out to you wanting to invest? Or I can only imagine, actually, we've had a few Shark Tank participants, Kodiak Cakes and a lot of others, Tippy Toes too, a bunch of others over the years that have been on there. Yeah, super fun.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about that experience. So you got to the show, and tell us a little bit about, had you met the sharks before you went out to pitch your idea?
No, I hadn't. And I don't know if you do in kind of normal years, but this was also filming. I mean, it was kind of a miracle that they were able to film safely and make it happen in the middle, fall of 2020. So in the middle of all of the restrictions, and they essentially, built a bubble and recreated the whole set in a controlled environment. And so, but we, did full quarantine and didn't meet anyone else, founders or sharks or anyone. And so, you go out there and, it's kind of uncanny. It looks exactly like it does on TV, and the doors open and you walk down the carpet and hit your spot. And then, it's one take. Cameras are going. And I think they actually do a pretty good job of kind of camouflaging the cameras behind the set, so it doesn't feel super invasive. And you really just are able to kind of fall into this dialogue and get to know the sharks. I think the average time is like 45 minutes to an hour. I was out there about that time. So, certainly there's a lot of the conversation that doesn't make it into the episode. So you really do get to kind of take your time and spend time on each of their questions. But I of course I was nervous and you're trying to juggle all these things of, okay, I want the product to look beautiful. I got to nail my numbers. What would the value proposition to each shark be? How do I convince them? I also just want to be likable on TV. Like, all of these. Yeah,
all of it. What do I wear?
Things.
Right?
What do I wear?
How do I
wear? And so, all of that for the weeks and months leading up, but then day of just try to go out there and, the opportunity to share the brand and my story with the sharks. And then ultimately, the country was really, really special.
And ultimately did a deal with Mark Cuban, which was amazing. So tell us about, that deal a little bit. So I actually loved Daniel from Kind Bar and how he approached it, and he sort of laid it out and said, this is what you should ask him for. I can't remember exactly. I was like, oh, that is so funny. But I thought it was really creative, actually. I give I give Daniel a lot of credit too, at least the way that it came off, as kind of thinking outside of the box a little bit about this, right? You didn't go into it actually thinking that that's what you were going to do, right? In the initial deal?
I really went in just thinking about I really wanted a partner. The business was doing well. We weren't looking at fundraising, outside of the show. And so really just went in thinking like, who is connecting with the mission, who seems to see the vision and is interested in being a partner in this. And just having watched the show so much, just as a viewer and certainly in preparing for it, I really felt that, Mark is a partner for entrepreneurs and that mentorship.
Totally.
But yeah, Daniel was great. I was really glad he was on my panel. And, each of them gave just a little bit of feedback that is really helpful and insightful, and just their quick take. Even when they go out, they, give some little nugget that you can incorporate. And yeah.
That's awesome. So what was the actual deal again, just to remind people? Because I thought it was a little bit unique.
Yeah, so we landed at $500,000 for 15%, and then I asked him to match our donation fundraising effort. So during 2020, we had, through this Originals campaign and some other initiatives that we did, we were raising money for artists who were out of work.
That's what it was, right?
To COVID. Yeah. So we asked him to match $50,000 of fundraising.
Which is awesome. It's so great. And such a good, I loved the last piece that he talks about actually in the frame at the very, very end, where he says that he's investing in you, which I think is so true. I would say that most of our investors as well, they love the business. They think it's going to work. They believe in it, but they invest in the people. Right. And I think it's the same thing that I think about, what consumers do too, that you have to have a great product, but then they start getting curious about who's behind the product. And part of the reason why I want to do this show is really to share that story and get your story out more too. But so what can we expect from JIGGY in the next year?
Yeah, a lot ahead. Really excited to share it all. So we, this year, have launched our Puzzle Club, which for the puzzlers who can't get enough, we have a monthly membership. So you get a JIGGY every single month. We are also going to be launching our own frames. So as you mentioned, each puzzle comes with a tube of puzzle glue, and the whole idea is these are real pieces of art by these emerging artists we work with. So we are launching our own frame pairings for the puzzles. We will also be going into kids puzzles. So an incredible whole new batch of artists who focus in kids art. So those will be 100-piece puzzles for kids. And then, we really core to the mission are these artists who we support and help monetize their work. So we're really looking into ways and platforms to be able to work with so many more artists. We, have a wait list going, and we only release a certain amount at a time. So a ton more to come in terms of how many artists we can work with. And then really excited to keep exploring these collaborations as well. As I mentioned, we've been doing some corporate custom, but we've also started working with nonprofits and organizations to create a puzzle around their mission. And we did one before the 2020 election with Sophia Bush's organization, I Am a Voter, and 3 incredible female artists created a piece of art around voting and what that phrase, I Am a Voter, means to them. We turned those into puzzles, and those the proceeds went to help for voter registration and turnout. We're doing a couple this year. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so we have a boobs puzzle that we're helping raise money with. So yeah, a lot more kind of fun collaborations and custom projects as well. That's what's
I absolutely love it. And we bought the boobs project. So I absolutely love that one and love everything that it represents too. Well, I think you are doing some amazing things and I'm so excited to see where this goes going forward. And more than anything, where can people find Jiggy? Tell everybody.
Yeah. Yes, we are Jiggy Puzzles everywhere.com, Instagram, Facebook, Jiggy Puzzles.
Awesome. And how about you? Where can people find Kaylin and follow more about your journey?
Yeah, I am Kaylin Marcotte on social media and LinkedIn. Can connect and follow the journey there.
So great. And for everybody who is listening, thank you so much for listening to Kaylin's incredible journey.
Thank you.
And it just makes me want to go do puzzles. I need to look into that puzzle of the month because it's such a great idea. I'm so curious. The one question I didn't ask you. So what is sort of the puzzle that what is the size puzzle that people seem to be okay doing? Right? That it's not too small, it's not too big. Like I just wrote a book recently and I heard like, you don't want it more than 250 pages. 250 is like the magic number. Anything over that, it's like, yeah, maybe. But anyway, I'm so curious. Is there a puzzle size?
I would say our core, like if you're a comfortable puzzler and, do them on a somewhat regular basis, our larger, the 800 to 1,000, like that's pretty the standard, 1,000 piece. And then 500 and our smaller one is 450. I think it's kind of the gateway puzzle if you're just tipping your toes in. So yeah, that's why we split those two sizes, and we also wanted them to complete at standard frame sizes for our framing, which they do. But I think 500 and then 1,000. And we're actually going to be adding to the site difficulty ratings because that is a question we get a lot.
I bet it is.
It's not just the size, it's the art and how much of one color and whole areas or how detailed is the design. So yeah, we're launching a difficulty rating for each design too.
I love it. That will definitely I think about the difficulty, but I just take on the hard stuff anyway and go on. Why not? Right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kaylin. And if everybody, we are here every Monday and Wednesday. We're on Apple and Spotify. And as I was telling Kaylin, this podcast is trending as one of the #1 entrepreneur podcasts nationwide in the US and also worldwide. We're hearing from so many different places outside of the US. And I love, love, love talking to entrepreneurs and hearing how they built what they've done and hearing all of the challenges along the way. And hopefully you're all inspired by learning from Kaylin and other entrepreneurs that really hopefully make you realize that you can do it. You have to have an idea. You have to go out and try and tackle things, and just figuring out how to make that first step is really often the hardest. And thank you so much, Kaylin. Everybody go and buy a puzzle from Jiggy Puzzles and have a great rest of the week, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks so much.